Right. So our speaker for today is Sindhura Karthikeyan. She is a graduate in psychology and currently working as a human resource executive at a startup in Bangalore. She's an enthusiastic person and she's planning to continue her career in psychology, mostly in developmental and child psychology. Today, she will be speaking on tackling workplace environment and pressures, and that is something she is probably perfectly qualified to do so, as her current job is of a human resource executive. So we have Sindhura.
Uh, Thank you so much, Kelly, for the wonderful introduction. So, hi guys. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe in this current situation. So, yeah.
Right. So welcome, Sindhura. Before we get to you and start the session, Nishiganda, who is a psychologist at Olive Counseling, would like to say a few things that would relate to why she exactly is present at this session. Nishi?
Yes. Hello. I hope everyone can hear me. Okay. Good evening to all, and thank you for coming. So, as Kelly said, relating to this topic, I would like to share an experience about being an intern. So, as I started as being an intern, before joining, I felt nervous. Before I didn't know how will the workplace be, and I was just confused how things would work. So yeah, when I joined, I got to know that how to deal with work, and then how things are and all of it. So I learned how to build rapport with my colleagues and the other people out there. I learned a lot in that. Also, I learned one thing, that my at work, it's more like politics, workplace politics. Now, why am I talking about it? Because it affected me somewhere when things went wrong at workplace. So I had this thing that my mindset would just be around the thoughts that are happening at work. So that is why I thought of sharing about the workplace politics. And yes, now coming to the session, I am glad that Sindhura is going to talk about tackling with workplace. So it's going to be a very interesting topic for this session. And yes, handing over to Sindhura.
Thank you, Nishi. So, yes, before I start the session, I like how Kelly had mentioned, I have a small request from all of you. Right now, because most of us are in our respective homes and we have not been able to, travel outside a lot, I would definitely request all of you to turn on your cameras if it is possible. This is a very non judgmental, safe space for all of us. So if you can, and if you're willing to do, you could turn on your cameras. I would like to see, some new faces out there. So yes, only if you're comfortable, no compulsions at all. If you're willing to, please do turn on your camera. Okay, so no problem. It's okay. So I will just give a quick introduction about myself, and I would also like to have this like a more interactive session. If you have any questions, any doubts in between, yes, you could always use the chat section as well. And also, we'll be having an FAQ session at the end of the session also. So yeah, if I'm going too fast or if I'm not audible, please do leave a message. Okay, cool. So to start with, I'll just give a quick introduction about myself. I, like how Kelly had mentioned, I did my master's in psychology and I have been working as in a startup company for the past 1 year. I'm going to be talking about the experiences that I have faced, I mean, that I've had over the past 1 year, the new things that I have learned, and I would like to definitely share it with you guys. And I'm very sure there might be a couple of you who might have had, let's say, more years of experience, might have different points of view, might have also different ways about how you have dealt with things, which I would definitely like to also learn and know about. So, okay, so I'll just present my screen. Just give me a minute, guys. Are you all able to see my screen? Could I get a thumbs up? Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I am going to be like how I had mentioned, I'm going to be talking about how do we tackle workplace environment and the pressures that we face. So I'll just give you a quick agenda about what is it that I'm going to be talking about. So when we talk about a workplace as such, there will obviously be our peers, people who are working with us, and most definitely the boss as well. And the next thing that I would like to talk about when we talk about pressure is that it has a great effect on us. It is the pressure that we put on ourselves and others also give us. And finally, something which I personally feel helps not just in the professional life but also in the personal life is about how we communicate, because it can majorly help us with a lot of things, avoid a lot of situations, and help us with whatever problems that we are in. So, this will be the agenda for the day. And before I go in depth about all of this, I would like to tell you a small story. So, to start with, okay, so generally, when we are working in a company, I'm very sure that all of us are working with a bunch of people right here. Like, say, we'll have teams, we will obviously have our boss. So, generally, there are some people who we might actually not particularly like, maybe one or two people. And obviously, there are going to be few people or a person who doesn't like us as well. Obviously, there's the boss, but there is a specific team in the company generally which nobody actually likes. They won't say it like right on your face, but they generally won't like this particular team, and that is the HR team. So let me be frank with you, because you are the HR team is actually the bridge between the company and the people that are there. So, and people actually, no matter what, like say if the toilet is not clean or you're having salary issues, be it anything, the first person they'll reach out to is the HR. And on an everyday basis, they come up with a lot of issues that they have. They have a lot of problems or they have a lot of questions as well. And sometimes most of it does go in a smooth manner, and sometimes certain things actually don't go in a very smooth manner. So that is something which is very, very hard to tackle. And whatever anger or hatred they have against the company, they won't show it there. They will show it to the first person they can reach out to, and that would be the HR. So yes, so not just that, because the HR people will be managing the entire employee life cycle. So dealing with somebody like say the employee who you know, or you have like say our face to face conversation, that is something which is very much easier. But when you are dealing with recruitment, you will get hatred and screaming from people who you don't even know. They'll call you early in the morning, late at night, and talk about so many things, and you don't even know what has happened and why are they actually angry or worried about. So that is something which actually, these are little things which all put together can lead to a lot of pressure and can also affect one's working experience or anything per se. So this is something which I have felt, because these are little things that I face on a day-to-day basis, which has had a great impact on me. And I feel that personally, by rectifying the small things that we do on a daily basis while we are working, can help us to work better, engage with a lot of people in a better way. So when we're talking about these three topics, we'll be focusing on the little minute aspects that we generally tend to miss out on or might not even give importance to. So, cool. Moving on. So, the first topic is dealing with peers, and yes, most definitely the boss. So yes, so obviously a lot of people are new to an environment like a working space, and obviously there are going to be different people. You might not know about how to deal with them or what are they thinking. You're just thrown into a place where everything is completely new. And trust me, I have been in that space, and it is very different. You won't like people might not be approachable in the first place at all. So it has been quite difficult for me. And one of the major issues that I have felt while going into a new working space is that there will be a vast cultural difference. No matter what we say, no matter how social we try to be, we're always, comfortable with people maybe who speak the same language as we do, or we are more comfortable with people who are from the same place as us. So we are definitely, there will be a bias. We do have a bias towards people we generally, associate with So when we have, like, say, we are put in a team where there are people from different cultures as such, what is that is this is one thing which I have learned to do, is that I try to engage in a conversation where I try to find the common things between us, and also try to appreciate what they actually stand for. So at the end of the day, these are little things that you can try to build maybe a rapport and try to understand them and appreciate them for what they are. But obviously, when we deal with, like, say, certain people, no matter what we try to do, we might not actually be able to get in a good rapport with them. That is also something which I have faced, and then it struck me that it is actually, we are here to actually grow and become better individuals and focus on the company goal. So we would rather have a professional relationship rather than just be cool buddies and share every other person's problem. So let's not just focus on the point of hatred or holding grudges. Let's make sure that we have a professional relationship, make sure that we give enough space for everyone to grow and also work towards the company's goal. So this is something that I have learned over the year, that we need to definitely build a professional relationship so that it doesn't affect any of us. Moving on, this is something that I wouldn't say with respect to a professional life. This is something that I have learned also in my personal life, about how to communicate assertively. So what is assertive communication? Just to give you a brief, I will talk elaborately on this in my final segment. So what is assertive communication? Is it is the way of putting what you feel and giving out your perspective without hurting other people's point of view as well. So you are just going to be telling what you feel, what you go through, or what is it that you want to actually specify. So this is what is assertive communication. So that I will explain later on. And before we try to question other people, whether or we judge other people, we should always think about, are we actually being a good employee? Are we actually reaching out to people? Are we actually doing the task that has been given to us? Because generally, no work is going to be independent. Obviously, no matter whichever team that you are in, you are going to depend on any other team. Like, say, the HR team will be closely related to the accounts team. We'll have to rely on them for various other things. So you are going to be working with different people across different teams, and only when I personally feel that when you do your work properly will you be able to point fingers at others, or also that is something that I closely relate to. So before we think about others, or before we talk about others, I would personally say that please make sure that you are working to your best, making sure that you are giving people proper updates, or whether you are being a good employee. The definition of a good employee can be different from one person to another, and also depending on the kind of work that you do. And finally, I don't know how many people out there are actually, like, say, actually employers rather than employees. If there is at least one person who is a boss right there, then I would also like to talk on the perspective of the boss as well, rather than just the employee's perspective. Because as a boss, he is actually doing his work because he's also working under somebody. He has been assigned so that he can make sure that his team runs effective and is also proper. So actually being a good boss is actually also a very big task, where I would generally suggest that being a good boss is very, very, very hard and requires a lot of effort. So if I'm just going to be brushing, I'm just giving you little points here and there. If you have any doubts, please feel free to ask, or we could discuss about this in depth in the final FAQ session. So the next aspect that I would like to talk about is, it starts with you. So generally, we have pressure from the people who are working with us, pressure from the boss, and also pressure that we put on ourselves to make sure that we do things rightly. So that, to start with, it begins generally with how you start the day. So right now, I understand that we are in a lockdown situation. Most of us are working from home, and obviously there are some people who are still going out to the office in this current situation. So no matter whether you're going to the office right now or whether you are working from home, generally how you start the day actually has a great impact on you. So right now, initially when the work from home actually started, I would be pretty lazy. I don't have, like, say, a login or a logout time. I can start whenever I want, but I'll have to complete my day's work. But I would generally get up at 9 o'clock, just sit before the laptop and just go through mails or do things here and there. But I was just pretty lazy too during the entire day. But when I actually made an effort to actually take bath, just have, like, say, a cup of coffee, sit in a place and start working, it actually creates a lot of impact. So generally, I would say that it might be different, like how again from one person to another. So make sure that you start the day on a happy note. And the next thing is that the workplace environment for now. So right now, I'm again going to emphasize on the point of working from home. Currently, if you're working from a home, make sure that you choose a place where you can actually work, and then just get your work done in that place and then move somewhere else. Make sure that you are not choosing the hall or the bedroom as a place where you can work. Make sure you are in a comfortable position. Make sure that you have everything which is close by, so that you don't have to walk here and there or take regular intervals, or go around or listen to music or things like that. Make sure you have a proper comfortable table, your water bottle close by, and things like that, because the place that you are in actually also does have a great impact on how you work. So generally, how I generally start my day is that before I turn on my laptop, I write the list of things that I would like to do. Generally, most people would try to prefer to write it all across in a paper, like in a point or a bulletin form. And there are also certain apps like Trello, which helps you to jot down everything properly. And generally, like once you jot down everything, you will know clearly about how to go ahead and work. I would most definitely say that prioritize your work, because it actually helps a lot, because you will know when to do what rather than just doing things randomly. Make sure you prioritize your work, and when you are done with whatever work that has been given to you, make sure to strike it out, because it actually helps you, and it all gives you a sense of satisfaction that you have done things, and that is something which gives you wonderful feels. I would please suggest that whenever you have the time or before you start the day, make sure that you're writing down everything and then striking it off as and when you finish it. And this is something which actually I'm really willing to talk about, because procrastination, and this is something that I do a lot, because I just feel lazy. Or another reason why I procrastinate is that I generally feel a bit scared to actually do certain things. Like, say my boss has given me a task to do, so I'll have to get back to him, but I'm just scared. I just think whether, oh my god, will my boss actually just scold me for this, or will he actually like what I'm doing? This is something which actually, these are majorly the two causes for procrastination that I feel. Number one could be laziness, or number two, that you are being scared of. And why do generally people procrastinate is that, like, say, I have given you the reasons of why generally people do procrastinate. But also, if you take that, no matter how much we try to do, there are certain things which we are going to, think that we're going to do it later on. So no matter how much we try to do, we are going to procrastinate on one thing or the other. And I have Googled on a lot of places about how to avoid procrastination. But recently, I came across this essayist who had given a solution saying that no matter what you try to do, you cannot stop procrastinating. You will definitely procrastinate. But there are actually something called as good procrastination and bad procrastination. So basically, bad procrastination is that, for example, right now I have jotted down everything that I would like to do for the entire day. So I write down, like, say, I have to, read my mail, and I have to get back and, get back on this, and I have to call all these people, and I have certain tasks. So generally, bad procrastination is that I try to do the small things which are actually not very important. I could also later in the night check my mails, but generally, a bad procrastination is something that we give importance to things that are actually not very important, and it gives us a sense of satisfaction that we have at least done something in life, and not majorly focusing on the bigger things. So that is something called as a bad procrastination. And good procrastination is the exact opposite, where we actually tend to do the things which are more important and push things which are unimportant to the later part. Like, say, if I have to send rejection mails, that does not require my brain to actually work. So that is something that I can do later after having my lunch and I'm actually pretty drowsy. So generally, for people who are actually procrastinating, you can most definitely not avoid procrastination, but you can definitely prioritize and work your way through things. So yes, this also is a major aspect which helps us to deal with pressure, is that taking care of you. Because generally, when we are working, whether in an office or right now in a work from home option, make sure that you take regular intervals when it is required. Make sure to take a nap in the afternoon. Drink lots of water, and also, like, say, do not skip breakfast, lunch, or dinner, no matter what, because we may say that I'm not a person who's very comfortable having a breakfast. I directly go and have lunch. But yes, all these little things actually does have a great impact on any of us. So definitely make sure that you are taking care of yourself. So that is one thing which majorly helps to deal with pressure. So this is also one thing which also comes with pressure, which is work-life balance. So work-life balance, as most of you know, it is about trying to balance between your professional life and your personal life. So right now, I would say that lots of people are also working from home. Again, emphasizing on that fact. So making sure that you have time to work. Your timings of work matter most. Make sure some people are actually workaholics who start like say who work from 9 to 9. I would definitely not encourage that fact, or also people who are pretty lazy and just working for some time. Making sure that you have proper timing. Start your work at 9 or even 9:30, 10, and make sure you are done by 6 or 7. So, which is very, very important. And also, like say, before I go on to the next point about how do you actually deal with a stressful day, or how do you do what do you do after a stressful day? Talking about times of work, right now I would say that when you are in your place, when you are working from home, this is a great opportunity, and I feel that most of us are blessed right now to have enough quality time with our family, have our jobs, and also work, because there are loads of people out there right now who are going through a lot of issues. A lot of them are migrating from a different place or do not have the job in hand. But when you actually have that, you are having a job, you have a family to go back to, make sure that you are able to finish your work. Make sure that you guys have lunch together. Make sure you finish work by 6 and just spend enough quality time with the family, so that this is something which can help you make it can help you feel better, make you a much more positive and a brighter person. So coming to the next topic, what do you do after a stressful day? So generally, if I am stressed at work, there has been certain instances where I'm very, very stressed at work. And what most people I have noticed also is that they don't tend to talk to people saying that I have a stressful day. Instead, they just vent it out on other people. They go back home and they're angry, or it just leads to a lot of conflict. The people who we are talking to generally would understand that, okay, chalo, this person is going through a stressful day, but for how long? How many times will they actually understand? They would also get pretty angry after like certain instances. Yes, so what do we generally do after a stressful day? So we just go back home and vent it out on others. So this is something that a lot of people right now feel Bangalore traffic as something which is very, very irritating. But I actually enjoy the Bangalore traffic, at least in this instance, because it gives me time to think about a lot of things. My office is actually situated in the Bannerghatta Road, which is one of the most, it's one of like, I don't even want to talk about it because the traffic is pretty bizarre in that area. And by the time I'm back home, it's just 2 or 3 kilometers, but it takes me almost like say 45 minutes to 1 hour. So if I'm having a stressful day and I'm stuck in the Bangalore traffic, I use that opportunity to actually think about what has happened. I try to calm myself down. I listen to songs, and I actually maybe just go back home or just grab something on my way home so that I feel better before I reach out to people. Or I would suggest that generally this go back home time, make sure it is a me time, because when I had a talk with my manager, his house is almost like say 1.5 hours away from the office. So he generally takes a book, reads it while he goes back home, so that he's much more calm, he's much more relaxed, and so that he can also spend enough quality time with the family. So this is something that I recently came across called HALT. So make sure that you don't take those decisions while you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because all of this will correctly happen when you are going back home after a stressful day. You will most definitely be hungry in the night, or you're angry with your boss or anybody around. Obviously you're going to go back home alone, you're going to feel very, very lonely and also tired. So all this has a great toll on us. So make sure you use this time as a me time, where you could think about what you want, think about what has gone wrong, or think about how you could make things better. Or at least go talk to a person telling that you require help, selling, or not even require help. Talk to the person saying that my day was bad, can you just listen to me? You can talk it out rather than just showing it in a form of anger or hatred towards another person, because they might also be going through something else. So this is work life balance. And my final topic for the day is topic about communication. So like how I mentioned, communication is something which is very, 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 very essential, be it personal life or professional life. So right now, when we're talking about the professional life as such, we are mainly going to be communicating through mails, calls and messages, which is very, very important. And this would be the right opportunity to learn how to effectively communicate through either mails or calls or messages, because it gives us enough time to actually think about and learn from our mistakes rather than being in office. Assertive communication. So generally, I read this that there are three types of communication: passive, aggressive, and assertive communication. And like how I mentioned earlier, assertive communication is very, very crucial, very, very essential. And I was initially a very non-assertive person, and I it took me almost like say 1.5 years to 2 years to actually learn to be more assertive. Assertiveness can also include saying no to. It is one major aspect. When you're not comfortable with a lot of things, people would actually hesitate to say no. They might actually agree to a lot of things. So saying no is actually one of the major points of assertive communication, because generally I came across an instance, if I were to tell you about it. My boss actually wanted me to work on a Saturday. If it was like say 2 to 3 years ago, I would actually agree to it, and it was actually my birthday, and I would, despite no matter what, I would still be like, okay, you know what, I'll come and work for a few hours. But this time I made it a point to actually go to my boss and tell, you know what, I actually cannot make it, I'm so sorry, I have something else planned. It took me some time to actually process all of this in my mind, but I made it a point and to go tell the manager that I cannot actually work on a Saturday because I have other things held up. So these are certain ways, and I put it across in a proper manner, not being rude or not being very, naive. I made it a point to go talk to her, and actually the person agreed, and it actually surprised me. So assertive communication cannot happen overnight. It would require a lot of practice. You can start assertive communication with people who you are close with, and then move on to a larger circle. And also generally we need to use soft power where we require, because some people, no matter what you're trying to assertively communicate with, or you are trying to be soft, you cannot get things done, especially when you're in an office setup. You need to know how to talk to people. You cannot use the same tone or the same way to talk to the same to different people. As such, you should know when to talk, where to talk, and also how to talk. So this point of using soft power to make sure you get things done, because like how I had mentioned earlier, you will be working with a different group of people with different teams as such. And when your work is going to not be completely independent, you will have to use soft power, use your tone to be a bit harsh to make sure things get done. So also this is one aspect of communication which I generally practice, and also generally while I'm in a phone call or when I'm talking to my boss as such, make sure that no matter whatever doubts that you have, make sure that you ask those doubts. Do not hold back. Ask them. They might actually feel annoyed or maybe irritated, but it doesn't matter, because when they are going to be telling something to you and you don't ask questions, or if you're going to have a lot of doubts which is inside you, and you don't try to find the answers for them and give them an improper output, it is not going to help. So no matter what, make sure that you ask people whatever questions that you have, whatever doubts that you have, and make sure to rephrase so that you understand exactly what they're trying to say. And also the final point is, make sure that you are precise. You don't talk about a lot of drama, you don't butter people, or you just don't give, like say, a lot of examples of things like that. Make sure that you are to the point. Just make sure that you tell what you require to. And finally, this is something that I would actually say under being a good employee, but also leaving regular updates is an important part of communication, because it lets people know where you actually stand. It would also apply in your personal life as well. For example, you are planning to go out with your friends and you're going to be late. A lot of people might be like, no, you know what, I'm not going to call an update. I'll just be there another 10-15 minutes. But there is no harm in just messaging the person saying that, hey, you know what, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. Or even if it is going to be with your boss, just tell them, leave them regular updates. Because like say, if a boss is going to give you a task to do and you're not prepared to do that, when you leave an update saying that, you know what, I'm actually stuck with this and I would require some more time, they would actually, most of them actually would appreciate or even consider that. But whether you don't leave updates and give them even a very good output pretty late on, they're going to be very, very pissed off with you. And this is actually a personal experience that I would like to mention here. So communication through video calls, mails, and phones. So right now, when we are communicating over a video call, making sure when you're doing an office call through video call, make sure you are dressed appropriately, make sure you have a good background, because this does have a great impact. Because I recently had a conversation with one of a very new person that I was communicating to for the first time, and her background was very pleasant. She had a bright smile on her face and she was dressed very nicely, and it felt good to talk to somebody like that. Because generally, imagine someone just being in casuals and their hair is pretty messed. I know we are all in our, we are in our home and we're just pretty lazy. And, a lot of people might actually not be very enthusiastic about dressing up. But trust me, because when you have a very good environment around you and you talk with a very good tone, especially during a video call, it does have a great, great impact on you. The next aspect is, when you're communicating to people via mail, making sure that, this is mail etiquettes are something that I have learned very well over the past 6 months. Because generally when I read a very bad mail, it actually kinds of irritates me. There is nothing that you understand, but a very good mail can actually, give you a very bright mood. It can make you feel better, not just to the reader but also for everybody else who's also part of the mail. And finally, when we're talking about phone calls, whenever we are talking to somebody who we know or we don't know, make sure to wish them good morning, good evening, or whatever it is. And just make sure that you have a very, very bright tone, because you don't know how the other person is across, right? You don't know what they are going through, what they are feeling. So, no matter what, even if you are having a bad day or no matter what you feel, make sure that you have a very bright tone. You wish people, you use words like thank you, sorry about that. You use pleasant terms which can have a very great impact, not just on you but others as well. So, to just give a quick conclusion about what it is, I had mentioned various points like, say, procrastination, prioritization, effective communication. These are things which would require repeated practice, and it is, if you try to excel in all these points at the same time, it is most definitely not going to happen. You could prioritize as to which aspect that you want to work on, and it would require some time for you to work on it as well. So definitely, nobody can be perfect on all these aspects. This is something even I am trying to do. I'm trying to learn all these new things, but I'm most definitely not perfect. So there is nothing like being absolutely perfect. There are going to be issues here and there or mistakes that we do here and there. It is all about how we try to correct it and how we try to learn and grow as a person. Finally, there is nothing like an ideal workspace, because it's all about how we perceive things and how we take it in. Because, like, say, my office space is pretty much the same every day. It depends on it depends completely on my mood. When I'm happy, everything might look like so pretty and everything feels good. But even when I'm in a bad mood and the AC is in a bad place, I'm just like, it affects us very, very badly. So there is nothing like an ideal workplace. It's about how you manage your emotions and how you see things around you. Finally, make sure that whatever organization or whatever company that you are working in, it is, apart from the salary factor, make sure that you have a takeaway from there. Like, say, you are able to personally grow and learn in a lot of places, because that is something which is much, much more important rather than the salary aspect as well. So make sure that you are in a place where you are able to personally grow and learn. And even if the situation does not help you to do that, make sure that you are giving your 100% to learn and grow, and try your best to make sure you are able to fix things. And yes, so this is what I wanted to say. So thank you all so much for being good listeners. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And I would also like to hear a lot of inputs from you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sindhura. I think I think we got to learn a lot and we got to take a lot from your session. And let's not waste time and move on to the question and answer segment of this session, just so that you can probably elaborate on something that you have already said and mentioned. And so, we get an idea and we're more effective in using the skills that you have already mentioned. You mentioned something about soft power, right? It was being assertive, but also having soft power. Could you give some kind of examples, maybe in a sentence, on how one can be or show soft power?
Okay. So, how do we generally use soft powers? Because of the position that you are in, Or actually, like say, if currently if I'm working with a team member and the person I'm interacting with a team member and we both are supposed to get some work done and the person is actually not very responsive and does not help me with it, then generally when we are in a group call with the person or with our boss, generally I would put it not like an issue which is out there, but I would rather say that these are certain things that we would like to work on. So is it something that maybe you could tell the boss, if you could add more inputs, it would be more helpful, so that the other person will know that okay, maybe I should start working on this. It's not, I'm not going to say that you need to show the boss that this is the bad person and he or she is not doing something properly. Rather, you should maybe portray it in such a way that maybe we require some more help to be done. So when there is a boss or when there is an authoritarian figure out there, the other person generally turns to work well. So just making sure that you put it across in a different way, or you just increase your tone of about how you're saying, because you cannot always be sweet and say like, can you please do this for me? Sometimes you need to use a harsh tone to get things done. It is not like a personal vengeance that you're having, but rather a tone difference can also help.
Right. Similar to that, what should a good email entail? I mean, how long should it be? How short should it be? Should it be point form? Should it be paragraphs? Like, what should a good mail entail?
Okay. So a good mail, generally it would depend on the context, because if it is going to it would, I like how I said, it would may depend on what context that you're going to be mailing to the person about. So generally, if I were to receive updates from somebody, I would say making sure your English is proper. You have like a good, like say good morning, good evening, or hello dear, whatever, like say whatever is in the starting point, and whatever that you have in mind that you would like to convey. If it is going to be pretty elaborate, a big mail, make sure that you have all the points listed down and making sure it is very precise. That is something which, because people are very very busy or they don't have the patience to read a lot of things. So if you want to convey something to somebody, make sure that you are very precise on what you want to tell. Point form generally works very very well. And when you're done with everything, just leave a mail saying that hoping to hear a reply from you soon, or thank you for so and so. So something to start with, something to end with, and if it is something like elaborate, make sure that you're putting them across in points, and think about what you want to actually talk about, and whatever that is that you're going to talk about, make sure that you add them in the subject line, because that gives a general idea about what the person is going to go about.
Right. Usually, now, just kind of asking based on what you already said. You said to make sure your English is proper in the email, right? And this goes both ways, for the boss saying it or the boss sending the email, as well as an employee sending the email. What if one of the parties, either the one receiving the email or the one sending the email, is not good in English? Like, English is not their main language, not even their second language. What happens then?
Generally, I would say that please don't judge them, because you don't know what they're going through, because English is most definitely not our primary language. We all have our own mother tongue. So when somebody has a bad English, definitely people might get actually pretty irritated with that. There are people who do get irritated with that, but you also need to understand the fact, like how I mentioned, English is not a primary language. And whether you're an expert in English or not an expert in English, it's about how you want to learn. So I would strongly recommend this app called Grammarly, because it helps me. No matter, English was my primary source of language from LKG as well, but I still use that app to make sure I don't do mistakes here and there. So there's no harm in learning, because learning is a continuous process. So just download an app or ask somebody so that you can, excel yourself better.
We have a few questions from our audiences. One of it is pretty similar, or maybe a continuation of what I also wanted to ask. You spoke about communication, but it was mostly from the communication from an employee's point of view to the boss. So how should a boss communicate with their employee? After you answer this, I will read out the question by the audience and you can answer
Sure.
it.
Okay, so I have mainly learned this from my boss. because when I spoke to the boss, he would appreciate and upon little achievements that you have done. Say you were given a task to do, even maybe update on something, and if you do it on time, he or she would make it a point to appreciate me then and there, because that regularly helps. And as a boss, when you are working on you when you have people working under you, as a boss you need to be the first person to help them with whatever it is. If somebody is going to be scolding your team member for something that has not been done properly, no matter what, you can use that opportunity. You could later on talk to that person, but to others, you need to make sure that you are actually protecting the team member who you're working with. Maybe apologize, saying that what, it has actually happened, and maybe he or she will work better on it. Because this is a major takeaway that I have learned from my boss, because he or she stood up for me when I felt that, okay, I'm going to get completely roasted by my senior managers. So this is something which is a very big takeaway that I had. And also make sure that not just the boss, be it no matter who it is, make sure that you appreciate them for little things, and it actually has a very great impact on them.
All right. So similar to that, Sukriti asks, what if the other person, that is the manager or a boss, has a harsh style of communication in
Mhm.
general that doesn't sound very appealing to the person who's listening or the person
Mhm.
they're telling? So
Mhm.
how can one deal with similar situations which are not under their control, especially when it's in their nature, it's in the boss's or the manager's nature, and
Mhm.
they are not open to constructive feedback or criticism?
Okay. Okay. I understand that. Okay. So I'm relating to all of this on a personal experience, with all the experience that I have faced so far. So I've also been in a situation where I've had a person who not actually like I similar to what this has been. So like say generally I wait for the person to calm down no matter what. If the boss has roasted me for something that has gone bad, I wait for some time for the person to calm down, because it doesn't actually make sense, because I'm also pretty drained out. I'm also having a lot of things which are running in my mind. I would give it a day or two break. And then I made it a point to go talk to the boss or the person regarding this. I told them that, what, because of this, so and so has happened. And I really don't agree with what you had to say because of so and so reason. I made it a point to go talk to them. Because when I initially discussed this idea of talking to my boss about this, a lot of people were like, what, bosses are going to be like that, you should not maybe talk about it. But I actually did make an effort. It was very hard. I was trying to use the right words, but it actually did help up to an extent. The person made sure to not do this again. So if you're having a hard boss or a harsh boss, and have you ever tried to communicate to that person when he or she is in a very cool state, and what, like, hey, actually what you told the other day, I don't completely agree with it. Make sure that you don't put the person down, because obviously they are the boss, they are going to be in that mindset. So I would definitely suggest that when you are also in a proper mind state and the person is also in a proper mind state, make sure to effectively communicate, put across what you feel, because up to at least an extent it can have an impact and it can most definitely help.
All right. I hope, Sukriti, that answered your question. If you have any more questions, do put it up in the chat box and we will answer them. There's another question from Nara Simhan. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. In case a team member has a prejudice or a preconceived notion about us, I'm not
Mhm.
sure whether us is as the boss or as an employee, but you
Mhm.
could answer both ways.
Mhm.
What is the most effective way to work on this in case it is affecting us?
Mhm. In case a team member has a prejudice or a preconceived notion about this, what is the most effective way to work on this case it is affecting us? Maybe we should try to prove that, what, actually I'm not this kind of a person. And I think mostly we are right now, there are a lot of people who are educated and a lot of people who are attending various courses and are trying to understand and become better people themselves. So when you say that the boss or anybody has a preconceived notion on you, you could always try to prove them wrong by not maybe saying it out loud, by through your actions. Because as and when you learn or when you work together, people's idea about you can most definitely change. So as and when initially it might be pretty hard to deal with, Obviously you need to be on your, let's say, full proper mindset to work things across. And obviously you should maybe not think about so much why other people, what they think about you generally, but if it is something that is going to, come in between your work, then you can most definitely prove it to them through your working style or through your actions.
All right. I hope that answered your question. There's another one from Nanda. She, he asks if I say no to my manager, and if he asks me to work on a Saturday, he would basically remember this particular incident, and during the annual review, he would point this out and tell me that I wasn't flexible enough. How do I be more assertive effectively?
Okay, got it. Okay, so to talk about that, Nanda, so generally, if it is just if the manager is going to be focusing on one aspect of it just because you weren't able to work on a particular Saturday, obviously there must have been other instances where you would have compensated for that work, right? Generally, if you are making sure, like say, number one, if you're going to, ask your boss to, that, hey, you know what, hey, I don't want to work on this particular day, make sure that you are actually able to compensate for the work, so that when there is a question, something which arises like this, you could tell them that, you know what, hey, it was just one Saturday and I actually completed the work that was assigned to me. So this is something that you could tell about, and I'm very sure you must have compensated for the work, sorry. So, and you could obviously tell that it was just one Saturday, I have been able to work on the other Saturdays as well, or you know what, I tried to finish most of the work the previous day, or I compensated for the work. So you give them another instance where you are able to complete the work that has been given to you.
Right. There's another one from Deepak Kumar. They say the accountant at my workplace doesn't seem to respond to my queries, though through call, message, or email. Even when I do, he doesn't take me seriously. I am unable to break this communication barrier. Any tips on how I can get through to him?
Okay. So I have I'm going to be talking about two different perspectives. Number one is because as a HR person, I have also had, like say, calls, mails, and so many things coming in at the same time. So it is pretty hard to deal with all of this at the same time. So number one, maybe the accountant is actually busy with a lot of different things and might actually require time. But even after, like say, repeated communication and you trying to reach out to the person, if the person has not been able to get back to you, I would generally suggest to make a mail and say, including the person who the accountant is reporting to, the senior most person, CC the person in the mail and make it polite, saying that maybe, hey, you know what, the accountant has been busy and I am in a bit of hurry and I would like to know about certain updates, or I would like to know about certain things. Could you please help me with it? So you generally mark the accountant and the person who she or he is reporting to and maybe make a polite mail, and that would actually maybe help.
All right. Thank you for that. I hope you got your question answered, both Nanda and Deepak Kumar. I have also a question because we're talking about mental health as well. I have two questions basically. One is when it comes to communication again, but also it could be anything else. What would you do, or how would you communicate to the HR in particular, or to the boss, on workplace harassment, either towards a male or a female?
Mhm. Okay, how would you communicate? Basically, I think it needs to be a very private communication, and you need to have a proper rapport with the person who you're going to be dealing with because it is a very sensitive issue. And you put across what you want to say without feeling afraid for anything. Because if you want to, generally, if there was an instance like this, if I were to be in an instance where I would like to talk about somebody or something about it, so I would generally also make sure if my manager comes to know about it and also the concerned HR person, because your manager would also know the other person, because the HR would generally know a lot of people in the company. But if it is somebody from your own team as such, the manager would also have an idea about how the other person is, be it he or she. So generally make sure to inform your manager and also the HR person and address your issue without feeling scared or afraid, because that is one major point. So make sure whether be it a boy or a girl, anything, it can always be any kind of harassment that you're going through. Make sure to voice it out, and make sure that some, obviously these things won't have evidence as such, but make sure you completely express what you are going through or how you feel about it, because it can actually have a lot of impact and it can help things to go in the right direction.
Right. A continuation from that same question, sort of. Uh, what would you now, when there is something like this that comes up, harassment or even stress, workday stress and other pressures, what measures do you as an HR or the management, what do you all take to make sure that the mental health of your employees is taken care of?
Okay. Okay. So if you're going to be talking about stress and obviously harassment, there are different ways to deal with them. So number one, to talk about harassment, we generally, sensitize people on all of this. We tell them that, what, hey, this is actually not acceptable, and if you do so, these are going to be the consequences. So you tell them clearly, and you also make sure that you are approachable to people, because when they are going through harassment, they need to know that, what, actually somebody is there to actually listen to me and help me with this. So we as a company make sure that we tell people that these are going to be the consequences, and we are going to be approachable if there are certain situations which comes up like this. So to talk about the harassment part, that is something that we generally do. And next, to talk about, let's say, stress, generally as an HR, we generally offer, like, say, a lot of recreational activities to people, a lot of benefits that they can avail as such. So it would depend from one company to company, depending on what their working style is and what the culture or value of the specific company is. So it generally an HR team would do a lot of things to make sure that the employees are feeling safe, feeling comfortable, and not most definitely feeling stressed. Because in the recent times, because of the pandemic situation, a lot of companies are offering extra money to people to make sure that they have proper benches and proper desks or chairs in their home for them to work comfortably, so that they don't feel stressed out. A lot of people are right now do not even have, like, say, log in, log out time. They are like, what, if the task for the day is done, you could actually very well go and relax. The leave system as such, or the games that you conduct, or how interactive you are with them, these are little things that every company does make an effort to make sure that the employees don't feel stressed.
There is a follow-up to my previous question on harassment by Sukriti. They ask, how do we voice out harassment effectively when there is no proof? Because apparently this has happened with a friend where there has been no action that was taken because there was no electronic evidence. What do you do then?
I would suggest if you don't get it from, like, say, you must obviously be, talking about this to maybe an HR person or a respective specific team from the company. Make sure you reach out to even to the higher officials if you feel that, what, no specific action has been taken. Because those people, like, say, if you're reporting to the HR manager and there is no action to be taken, the HR manager will most definitely be reporting to somebody else. Make sure that you reach out to the higher officials too. Make sure that, there are proper consequences or proper, things that has been done to make sure that you are feeling much more safer in an environment. I recently came across a TED talk or a random YouTube channel where a girl was harassed by two of her male employees, and it was she, even though even if she was walking through a corridor, they would make weird noises to, which made her feel very, very uncomfortable. And obviously there were no camera, because the camera wouldn't recognize all the voices, it wouldn't generally record all these voices. And eventually the word kind of spread, and she was made to look like a very, very bad person. But I appreciate the guts that she had. She went across to all the higher officials, portrayed what was actually going on, and finally she did get justice. And those two people were taken out of the company, and this girl was asked to work back again, and saying that, what, hey, actually there's no fault in you. So this is something that no matter what, make sure to you are able to reach almost all the officials, probably, because there is no mistake from your side at all.
Right. I'll just get to your question, Abhinaya, but I have a follow up on base of what you said. You said
Mhm.
that reach out to the higher ups, and all of this can be pretty stressful for the person who's going through this, especially if they're going through it alone. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned in the video that you watched, this the woman or the girl who was harassed was later portrayed to be a bad person, and then it
Mhm.
spread throughout the whole office. So how or who do they speak to when they cannot speak to anyone like the HR or anyone else in the office? Who do they speak to, and how do they deal with that stressful situation that they're
Mhm.
going through?
Okay. So generally, I would say that the threshold is different for different people. Say, for example, I might not be a person who would like to work in such an environment. It might have a great effect on my personal life and my professional life. I can very well choose to move into a different organization. It's obviously not escaping. Don't confuse this to be something like escaping about, because it is not. It is something that is actually affecting my mental health at the end of the day, and it is there's no fault in me. It is not like I can obviously survive in a different place and I could also work more effectively in a different place as well. So you can always have another opportunity, but which is available. But I would still say keep this as a last option. Definitely, I would say that you could talk to at least your family, if not your office colleagues. Make sure that you have at least one person who you can talk with, and make sure that you don't give up and fight no matter what. Because as like how I mentioned, fighting and having the mental strength is very important. And obviously, my way of building a mental strength can be quite different from how it would be for others. So I would just suggest that talking to somebody, maybe not a colleague but a family member, and to focus on your personal growth. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we say that what other people are going to be talking about won't affect me, we could generally say that, but without our knowledge it does have an effect on us, because as humans we tend to associate with other people, and whatever they talk about, it would actually matter to us. So yes, I do understand that it might be very hard, but I would still say that give it your best shot and gather up all the courage and make sure you are able to effectively communicate. Because if you try to be more naive, people are just actually going to stamp on you and they are going to continue doing that. But when you try to raise your voice and be you soft power, be harsh where you actually need to be, because all these false things that people are going to talk about you, when it is not going to be true. If you're just going to be very naive and just shy and just go away, people are going to continue that. But when you actually go up to their face and be like, what, this is not actually how it is and you better mind your own business, when you actually gather up the courage to talk about this, people might actually stop. And have I personally feel that this is something that can work and has worked also.
Right. Thank you for that. And just to add on to what she said, you can talk to your family, talk to a friend, a colleague who is there by you. But also, many establishments and many offices have provided for with a psychologist or an occupational
Mhm.
psychologist who mostly comes in maybe once a week or twice a week and sits down with every single employee.
Mhm.
So if you feel like you cannot talk to a higher up or a colleague because they work in that same space, you can speak to the psychologist who is unbiased to you. So I hope that answers the question and we elaborate a little more. Abhinaya asked a question, which is how do you deal with gender bias or unfair favoritism in the team, especially when it's coming from the senior managers?
Okay. So yes, favoritism, and this is something which is most definitely going to be there in a lot of places. And no matter how you try to do, there are people are gonna definitely have their favorites. Not just maybe in a boss or an employee relationship, but even among friends, we might have like say our own favorites and things like that. That is going to happen. But I think as long as it does not affect your work, or whether they don't bully you for it, I think you should not actually give a damn about what other people think and focus on, like how I mentioned, please do focus on your personal growth. Because there are going to be many instances like this. Like say my thing is like when I'm working in the company, obviously there are many different things, but I try to shift my focus about my own personal growth, my own learning, because it has actually helped me. Obviously my boss might have his or her own favorites, yes, but I will act in such a way, I will make sure in such a way that it is not affecting my work, or it does not affect me as per se in any way. So I would try my best, and effective communication is one such way. Obviously, there is no solution for your boss or anybody having somebody as a favorite. It will definitely happen, but make sure to your ability. You need to think about what are the actions, whatever that you do might have future consequences or actions, and work accordingly, because that is something that can help. Because right now, if I were to go and talk to my boss like, hey dude, you know what, why are you being so why are you showing favoritism to that specific person, the boss might actually get back to me later point in time. It might happen, might not happen, but I'm going to maybe more, if I try to maybe focus more on what I actually want to do, get my things done properly, there is no reason for somebody else to bother me or affect me in any way. So I just mostly focus on what I have to do, and that can actually help.
All right. Thank you for that. I hope it answers your question, Abhinaya. I have one last question that I think maybe touching upon that question is important, especially at this situation that we're in where everyone's working at home. How would you get used to not working at home when it's finally time to go back to the office and get used to that routine? Because I know a lot of people on a normal situation when they go to work, maybe Saturdays and Sundays they're off, but they won't sleep in the afternoon on a Sunday because they're going to work on a Monday and they don't get to sleep in the office in the noon or during noon. So how do you not get, or how do you make sure that you don't get so used to the situation of working at home that later on when you have to go back to the office and start your daily routine, you don't carry on the same practices?
It is actually something which would require, like, say, taking baby steps and working towards it. Obviously, we are all going to feel lazy right now when most of us, or even me in specific, are going to have that attitude, like, let's face it, when it actually comes, right? So that's what most of us are going to be in, and it is most definitely going to be hard. But when actually I am, rather than giving an actual explanation, I am a person who personally feels that when the situation comes, people would actually do that and work on it, because we do procrastinate, we may feel lazy, and most of us might actually be enjoying the situation that we are in. We are getting home food, we are able to relax much more better. So it is going to be very, very hard. And obviously it doesn't, definitely do enjoy the current situation that you are working in, because we are among the lucky people who can be at home, be safe, and also work and get a good income. So we are among the lucky people here. So just do enjoy this, but when the time comes, make sure that you gather up the strength, you gather up the mindset to work towards it. Maybe when you know that you're supposed to start work from October, make sure at least in the last few days of September, like how our moms try to make sure that we sleep at 9 during the last 2 weeks of the summer holidays time, making sure that what, you need to get up early, you need to practice that. So in the last 2 weeks of summer holidays, our parents will be like, go to bed early. So that is something that I would say, that try in the last 2 weeks, not immediately right now, but make a small effort to work on it. Because at the end of the day, when you suddenly go back to the office after all this, it is going to be pretty new. A lot of things are going to change. So yes.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Sindhura. I don't think we have any more questions from the audience, and you've answered pretty much all of mine. But thank you so much for coming here and giving us these tips on how we can be more effective at the workplace, and also how we can be more, we can handle our stress more, and we can handle ourselves better and communicate better with other people. So right. So thank you everyone else for being here, all the audience. Thank you for coming and watching and giving in your inputs and asking a lot of questions. It was much appreciated. Also, Sindhura, I know that you're busy and it's a difficult job. So thank you for making time and being a part of this session and talking to us.
Thank you, Kelly and Nishi, for this wonderful opportunity, and thank you all for being such wonderful audiences. And yes, thank you all so much.
All right.
Have a great weekend, you guys.